is Marjorie Golden. I'm the parent of a special needs student in Carroll County. While on this journey with my daughter, I've sought out training regarding special ed so that I could feel like an equally knowledgeable member of the IEP team. So I've attended classes, conferences, workshops, in addition to my experiences with my own daughter. And I've seen just how unbalanced things are between the school-based members of the IEP team and the families involved. This bill will help to level the playing field by giving parents more of a voice in the IEP team decision-making process. Right now, although parents are supposed to be considered equal members of the team, all decisions are made by a consensus. The lone voice of the parent gets drowned out, and some decisions are too important to a child's well-being and future success to allow the parents to be marginalized in this way. I've seen over and over again where other factors influence the decision-making process of an IEP team. Things like the local availability of an appropriate program or placement versus meeting the actual needs of the child, or moving a child to the alternate assessment, which also means moving them to certificate track, and therefore depriving them of the opportunity to earn a high school diploma, merely because it can be challenging to accommodate them in a regular education classroom. Or restraint and seclusion being used on special ed students due to a lack of training in appropriate behavioral modification techniques. Many people argue that educating students with disabilities in the general ed setting is too expensive. I argue that having an open mind, believing in the potential of our children, and acquiring knowledge about a variety of disabilities is absolutely free. In my own experience, our school district filed due process against us twice over unnecessary assessments. We ended up having lawyers attend IEP meetings, and in the end, the district had billed almost $43,000 in legal fees over one child in an attempt to remove her from the diploma track starting in 5th grade. The disagreement over moving her actually started in 2nd grade when she was just 8 years old, because it's in the 3rd grade when the students begin taking the state assessments, and they don't want our kids bringing down the average scores. As a matter of full disclosure, I will tell you that since the school system gets a 20% discount from their law firm, they actually only spent about $35,000 fighting us. But I can tell you that we spent even more in an attempt to convince the school system to give our kid a chance. We didn't file due process. We weren't demanding they pay for a non-public placement. We just wanted them to educate our daughter appropriately. There's a saying in education, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. That's all that we've been asking for. Special education is a service, not a placement. It can and should be provided in the least restrictive environment, which always starts in the general ed classroom. When school systems find it more convenient to warehouse kids with disabilities in a separate, segregated classroom out of convenience, parents ought to have a stronger voice to say no. Please support Senate Bill 710 to help level the playing field in IEP team decision-making and give parents a stronger voice in shaping their vision for their child's future.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. My name is Carson Witcher. I'm from Carroll County, Maryland, District 5, and I'm here to support Senate Bill 710. I included a witness statement for all of you to read over, and I want to go over the story of my son. Jason Witcher, age 7, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 24 months. He's a high-functioning student, but has severe language delays and sensory disorders that have devastating impacts on his education, his social and personal growth. In the fall of 2015, Jason was rolled into general education kindergarten at Friendship Valley Elementary School in Westminster, Maryland. He was provided a one-to-one to accommodate his needs as per his IEP. Transitioned into general education kindergarten was proving to be very, very difficult for Jason. He had difficulties in the classroom transitions, interacting with his peers, communicating his ideas, focusing and completing work assignments, and staying in his assigned area. By early spring of 2016, the school staff began to use CPI restraint to help control non-compliant behaviors. The most outlandish rationale for CPI restraint was for non-compliance in March 2016. This episode involved 3 adults, Jason, and a Lego. After earning his reward time to construct Legos, Jason built an airplane. The students were then instructed to line up to go to the next class, and Jason was willing to go. However, he wanted to take his Lego plane with him. Jason is often given fidget toys during the classroom activities or transitions to other classrooms to help with sensory regulation. This day, however, the teacher didn't feel that it was necessary that Jason take the Lego with him. and she demanded that he put it back. Being autistic with language delays, he refused, and from there she called for backup, and when backup arrived, they restrained him and ripped the Lego out of his hand, and then removed him and put him in a support room for an hour and 15 minutes. After this, now keep in mind that Jason was only 6, and he was 40 inches tall and less than 40 pounds, and it took 3 women, adult women, to wrangle him. After that event, CPI became the go-to practice rather than positive behavior interventions. So then I'll make it really quick. We'll skip forward to first grade. Jason was able to complete 28 days in the public school system, where the administrators then put him into Pride because his behaviors were escalating. And the Pride program is run by a behavior interventionist, and that's not really suited for children with autism. Within days of placement in this new placement, Jason was restrained, typical behaviors, secluded for noncompliance, was ultimately suspended for behaviors consistent with a manifestation of his disability. Throughout his time in Pride, none of his needs were met, and he suffered needlessly from the misplacement from administrators, not his IEP team. The administration went right ahead and placed him into a behavioral program for noncompliance. Basically, they did it just to get him out of the way and out of their hair. On December 15th, 2016, on his last day enrolled in Pride, Jason was no longer my sweet, adoring little boy. He was this kid I had never seen before. I had pulled him because of all the physical and emotional distress that he had undergone. He displayed uncontrollable tantrums, stripped off his clothing, urinated when he was touched or secluded. He used foul language, destroyed school property, threatened violence towards others, and voiced suicidal ideations. He was 7 years old, and this could have been prevented if the team had met and we had the right process in place. But instead, administrators went right above everybody and made that choice for him. He deserves a voice, and I urge you, I beg you, to pass 710. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Kitzinger. I'm a resident of Carroll County, Maryland. This is actually my 3rd year coming to testify on behalf of, it was burden of proof. I appreciate all the faces that I see that are familiar from the joint meeting with MSDE, and I appreciate listening to our concerns. And I would be one who says this bill is a really good compromise. I think all 4 areas are important, but I'm actually going to pick up on where Carson left off a little bit of what I see happening in our county. I actually have had the pleasure of working with Carson and her family. My oldest of 4 is autistic, and through the years, she's 20 now, through the years of special education, I've learned a lot, and I've had families reach out to me in our county because I've been successful in getting my child the placement and an appropriate education for her. Carson is one of many families that I've seen in our community where there is a trend. It is not just autistic children, but there seems to be a definite trend in Carroll County that there is what's considered alternate educational placements, the PRIDE program, the BEST program. These programs are for behavioral problem children. So not necessarily made for an autistic child or a special needs child or a child with a disability, whatever you want to call it, but they're for behavioral problem children. Now, a child with a disability, if you do not meet their unique needs, they become a behavioral problem, severe behavioral problem if you don't meet their needs. I mean, a Lego. Carry the Lego down the hallway, talk to the child about the Lego, have a conversation. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think he was actually going to speech because I've been in Carson's meetings. I've worked with the family. It is disheartening to hear what is happening, but in these programs, they are treating these children as nothing more than a behavioral problem. Restraint and seclusion is used almost on a daily basis. There are some children I've worked with who've been restrained up to 18 times in a day. Think about that. 18 times in a day. Children who are placed in seclusion for up to 30 minutes because you can't pass the 30 minutes, but they can be placed multiple times in seclusion in a day. Children who went from being disabled with nothing more than a mere elopement problem like Jason to now they are suicidal. They are, good for them. They're now writing and drawing pictures. We all wanted them to write and draw, but what they're writing and drawing is they want to kill themselves. They want to kill the teachers. They want to blow up the school. This is not what we want for these children. And if we meet their needs, they would not be like this. I have toured some of the programs that use the seclusion, and let me just give you a vision to leave you with and ask yourselves if you want your child to have this. The seclusion room is cinder block. There is nothing in there. There's a camera up in the ceiling. You shut the door, the locking mechanism has to be held by an adult in order to keep the door shut, which means an adult is watching. They're watching this happen to this child. I urge you to not only support Senate Bill 710, but Senate Bill 786. Give these children a voice and help us as parents stop this abusive nature. Thank you.
Let me just ask you a question very quickly. When you put the child in seclusion, and I know you said it's limited to 30 minutes, right? So, and it's just a cinder block room?
It is a cinder block room.
And is it it's not padded, it's
No.
not, they don't put any protective gear or equipment on the child?
No,
If they put her, it's obvious to me that it's not a behavior, that the child should not be in the behavior program. But even being a behavior program, although the child was misplaced and didn't belong there, so the children who have and should be in behavior programs, they just throw them in the room by themselves too?
Yes.
So they don't pad, protect?
No, in fact, you will see a clip of a seclusion room when we have the hearing for Senate Bill 786.
Oh, I saw that. It was horrible.
That's a pretty standard seclusion room.
I saw that. I saw it. I saw what happened with the little boy sitting at the door, and all of a sudden he was lying in a pool of blood.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, if I can just put this note. I recently sat in a meeting where the reason to have seclusion and restraint in the behavior intervention plan, which is a part of the IEP, is because according to COMAR, if you do not have it in the IEP and you use it, which you are allowed by certain standards, then you must have an IEP meeting within so many days because you've placed that child in restraint or seclusion. And they're placing them in the IEP just so they don't have to meet. So you can have multiple events occur and not have to meet because it's now in the child's IEP. It's a convenience.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. Questions, committee of this panel? No, thank you for, I'm sorry. Senator Penske, the Vice Chair, has a question.
To any of you, and I apologize for missing the first part. On the last page of the bill, it says if the parent refuses to consent to the action proposed, change of placement or whatever, those 4 items, it said the IEP team may use a dispute resolution option. If I would assume both parties have